All right, so let's go ahead and talk about functions of the heart. We know pretty much a good idea about what goes on with the heart. It pumps blood through the body. Okay, generating blood pressure, meaning that without the blood pressure, it wouldn't be able to flow from point A to point B. If your heart didn't pump it out, it wouldn't be able to make it to your outer extremities. Okay, routing the blood. There's two different pumps. Okay, you have your ventricles and your atrium. Okay. Two pumps moving the blood through the pulmonary and systemic circulatory system. Okay, we'll learn which one pump where. Okay, atria pump to the other parts of the heart. Okay, where the ventricles pump out, but we will get more specific and figure out which ventricle pumps where. Regulating blood supply. The blood supply is regulated by changing the rate and force of the heart contractions. In pulmonary circulation, the blood moves from the heart to the lungs. Okay? And in the lungs, there's lots of capillary beds. This is where your gas exchange is going to take place. So here, your blood is absorbing oxygen and losing carbon dioxide for the most part. Okay? Here in these capillary beds. Okay, these capillary beds are very important for that gas exchange. Okay, and you can see here they are found in the lungs, which is your major cavities in your chest, or your major organs in your chest, that expand when you breathe in. Okay? Systemic circulation. So in the systemic circulation, this would be in your tissues down here. Okay, these capillaries in your tissues will do the opposite. They give oxygen. Okay, they release oxygen through the capillaries, through the blood, here in the tissues. Okay, remember hemoglobin holds oxygen, so you get the distribution from the hemoglobin on the red blood cells to the tissues, and they absorb the carbon dioxide into the blood and move it back through the body to be filtered. Okay. The heart is located in your chest, right? Behind the sternum, front of your spinal cord. Okay. As is, it's here, anterior to the vertebral column and posterior to the sternum. Okay. It's left of the midline, which means it's not straight in line. It's just slightly deviated to the left, okay, medially in the body. And it's deep to the second to fifth intercostal spaces. What are the intercostal spaces? You guys remember? Spaces in between the what? Ribs. Between the fifth to the second ribs. Okay. Superior surface. Superior to the surface of the diaphragm. Where's your diaphragm found? Okay. Right across there. And in that area, that diaphragm helps to inflate and deflate the lungs. Without the diaphragm doing this job, you would not be able to inhale and exhale air very efficiently. Okay. The heart is shaped like a blunt cone. Okay. We've got some hearts that we're going to dissect later, and we'll see more about that. And has an apex and a base portion of the heart. And it's also approximately the size of your fist. So we have the sheep heart and the cow's heart. We will see that there's a great variation in size between the organisms. Okay? So it's dependent on the size of the organism, the size of the heart. The sheep heart is much more comparable in size. It's going to be slightly smaller than human, but not near as disproportional as a cow's heart. Okay? So here we see the base portion of the heart, or the more rounded area, and then the apex. Okay? The base of the heart would be the area of which you have your atrium chamber. Atriums are on the top, and then you would have ventricles down on the lower portion. Okay. So the heart consists of two atria and two ventricles. Atria are basically collecting chambers that pump blood from the atria to the ventricles that spend most of their job as a collection of blood coming back from either the lungs or the body. And the pericardium is a double-walled sac that surrounds the heart. So basically, it's the outer membrane of the heart would be the pericardium. So if you have your little heart here, okay, you've got an outer coating on it, and it's in multiple layers. Called your pericardium. You have a really tight layer to it. It's beautiful. Which is very tight to the heart, and in between that and the outer pericardium, you'll find that there's a fluid-filled area there. We're going to look at that later. Okay. The parietal layer lines the internal surface, so it would be the green layer there. And then the visceral layer lines the surface, the parietal layer lines the internal surface of the fibrous pericardium. Okay, the visceral layer is the green that goes right around the heart, and they're separated by the fluid-filled pericardial fluid, which is found between the green and blue layers in the pericardial cavity. Okay, pericardium. So the fibrous pericardium, basically its job is to protect and anchor the heart in place, and also it prevents what? What does it prevent? Okay, so it helps to prevent the heart from overfilling with blood. Okay, the serous pericardium allows for the heart to work in a relatively friction-free environment. So basically, would your car's engine work without oil? No. So basically, you've got the same thing going on here. You've got a lot of motion, you've got a lot of compression going on. Without something to lubricate, you're going to have a failure. So your serous pericardium containing the fluid is very important for the success of the heart. Okay. Here we see an image of the anatomy of the heart, which we will spend more time in detail on later when we do the dissection. Okay. The heart has three layers: the epicardium, the myocardium, and the endocardium. Epicardium is the visceral layer of the serous pericardium, and it provides protection against rubbing. Rubbing other words. The myocardium, myo referring to muscle, it is the layer of cardiac muscle forming most of the heart. Okay? And it's also responsible for the contraction and beating of the heart. The endocardium. Endocardium is the endothelial layer, meaning on the inside, and it's over the top of layers of connective tissue. The inner endocardium reduces the friction that results from the passage of blood through the heart. So basically, it's the lining on the interior, the endocardium. Okay. The ventricles have ridges called trabeculae carnae. Okay. What is the trabeculae carnae? Question 1, research. Have it for me next time. Okay. The inner surfaces of the atria are mainly smooth. Okay. The articles have raised areas called the musculi pettinae. So here we look at the tissue layers of the heart. We have the interior endocardium, the myocardium composed of muscle cells. And what type of muscle cells are found in the heart? Cardiac muscle cells, right? Got cardiac muscle cells in here because they are striated like skeletal muscles, but then they're not extremely elongated like skeletal muscles, and they're not multinucleated. Okay, then here towards the outside we have the epicardium, okay, which makes up the visceral pericardium, and we find a lot of fat below that epicardial layer. Okay, where you have top area of the simple squamous epithelial cells. Atria. Okay? Atria, one of the two main types of chambers in the heart. Atria, as I said before, main job is receiving. Okay? Receiving blood from the body or the lungs. Each atrium has what is called an auricle that protrudes from its surface. Okay? There's muscles in there called pectinate muscles. So the pectinate muscles line the atria and help to contract slightly, ever so slightly, compared to the ventricles, which have tons of muscle. And the atria have very little muscle in comparison. Okay? And there's veins that enter the right atrium that carry blood to the heart. These are called the inferior and superior vena cava, okay, as well as the coronary sinus. Where do these veins, whoops, I might have just given you a hint there, the vena cavas, where does it bring blood from? Where does it bring blood from? Does it bring it from the lungs or bring it from the body? Body. Okay? And the veins entering the left atrium carry that blood to the heart from the pulmonary circulation. Okay? So the veins in the left atrium are brought by the pulmonary veins. It is the only vein, or the only veins in the body that carry blood that contains a high amount of oxygen. Okay? Ventricles, your major pumping organs, or major pumping parts of the heart. Okay? These are the pumps that are going to pump to the lungs or to the body. Okay? The ventricles are discharging chambers of the heart, and they have papillary muscles and trabeculate carinae muscles that mark the ventricular walls. Okay? These carry the blood away from the heart, either to the pulmonary trunk that exits the right ventricle and pumps to the lungs through the pulmonary circulation in order to oxygenate the blood. Okay? The aorta exits the left ventricle. And when the left ventricle pumps, it is the largest chamber of the heart, the left ventricle. As far as its muscular content, it is a very thick musculature. It pumps out and it carries blood through the aorta to the body. Okay? External anatomy of the heart. Each atrium has a flap called an auricle, which we talked a little bit about. Okay? What is an auricle?
Extensions of the atria.
Okay. The extension of the atria. This thing's compacted so tightly you can still see the auricles right here. You'll see it better on the hearts that you get out later. But this area right here, the auricle, again, it kind of looks like rough looking pig ears. You've ever seen a lot of pig ears. They're very wrinkly. Coronary sulcus is basically the tissue that separates atria from the ventricle. Okay? And then the intraventricular grooves help to separate the right and left ventricles. Intraventricular grooves. Okay, and the heart chambers themselves have interatrial septums that separates the atrium from each other. Interventricular grooves separate the ventricles. Interatrial septums separate the atria. This fossa ovalis is the former location of the foramen ovalis through which blood bypasses the lungs in the fetus. Okay? We won't spend a whole lot of time talking about fetal blood circulation or fetuses in general, but I thought that would be good for you to see there. Okay? And the interventricular septum helps to separate the ventricles, as mentioned above. Okay, interventricular grooves and the interventricular septum. Okay, surface view of the heart. Okay, where would the auricles be found? Well, you can't see it because you look at it one side over the other. But what area would it be found? Would it be found towards the bottom or towards the top? Remember, they're over the atrium. Where are the atriums found? Are the atrium at the bottom? Atrium at the top. Okay, atrium at the top, so it would be at the top, but on the other side of the heart where you cannot see it. Okay, so here you see the atrium, and then the pulmonary trunk there, okay, of the heart where it's going to pump out into the pulmonary system. Okay, more on the surface of the heart we're looking at here, the external anatomy. Okay, what do we find right here? What chamber am I looking at? A ventricle, right? This one happens to be the left ventricle. Why is the left ventricle more heavily muscled than the right ventricle?
It's the last one that's pumping the blood all the way through the body.
Through the body. And the right ventricle only has to pump how far?
Through 2 lungs.
Through 2 lungs. I mean, it's just right there. It doesn't have to go to the toes or the top of the head. It's just got a short way to go. Okay, so it needs less strength to pump the blood. Okay, the heart valves. Okay, they ensure the unidirectional blood flow through the heart is occurring. It's only going one way, unidirectional. Why would it be bad for blood to go backwards through the heart?
It would be oxygenated.
Right. So if we're mixing blood that's oxygenated and deoxygenated, what's going to happen to your tissue? Your tissues and your body aren't going to respond well if you have unoxygenated blood going to. They need that oxygen. Okay. The AV valves lie between the atria and the ventricles. Okay. So the AV valves are found right in the middle, okay, of the heart between each chamber. And they also help to prevent backflow into the atria when the ventricles are contracted. So they prevent backflow when the ventricles contract. Okay. The chordae tendineae anchor the AV valves to the papillary muscles. Okay, we're going to look at those in detail later. The chordae tendineae are exactly what it sounds like. Okay, they look like little tendons in there, and they're attached to different valves. And you'll see these little string-like structures, which are the chordae tendineae, and how they help hold the valves open. More specifically, the AV valves. Okay. Then we have the tricuspid valve and the bicuspid valves. Okay. The tricuspid separates the right and the left atrium, the right atrium and the right ventricle. Okay. It prevents the backflow from the ventricle to the atrium, which is hard to do because the atrium is not under very much pressure. So you don't have to worry about that backflow near as much as you do when a ventricle contracts. Because when a ventricle contracts, that is when the blood is at the highest pressure. You know, your diastolic and your systolic pressures. All right, heart valves. Then you got the semilunars. Why semilunar? Kind of like a moon shape. Part of the moon. Semilunar. Okay, you'll see that several of those, these tissue flaps that look like half moons stuck together, make up these semilunar valves. There's the aortic semilunar valve between the left ventricle and the aorta that keeps blood from coming back from the aorta into the heart, and the pulmonary semilunar valve, which is between the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk, which prevents the blood from going from the lungs back into the heart and to the right side of the heart. So here we see the exploded diagram of the internal part of the heart. Here we will look at this in a lot more detail. Okay, so here we see the semilunar valve, right? See the half moon shape? You got the little curvature there going on. Okay, these semilunar valves prevent the blood from going back into the heart. Basically, they'll open going this way, but when they start getting pushed the other way, it's like the hands, like if you put your hands this way, they would lay over the top of each other, not allowing blood to go back that direction. Okay. Whereas if you press pressure this way, it will open up, but if you press this way, they close back up. Okay. So here we have an internal part where we have the tricuspid and the bicuspid valves. these are actually triggered by the muscles themselves, not necessarily just by the pressure of the blood flow, indifference by these, the semilunar valves. The chordae tendineae are actually attached to the muscles, and the muscles determine how they open and close. Okay, so here we look at an exploded picture of the heart, which we will bring back up while we're looking at the hearts themselves, so we can look at those structures. Okay. Later, we'll stick a probe down the aorta and see where it comes into the heart. Same thing with your pulmonary arteries as well. And we'll look at this right here. Okay. We have a couple of step methods right here of what's going on. As the blood comes into the heart in part 1, what valve is open?
Bicuspid.
Okay. Bicuspid valve. This is the left ventricle. Is that one right? Yeah, you're right. Bicuspid valve, tricuspid's in the right. And then we go back and around, and then we see that the blood is trapped in here because the aortic semilunar valve is closed. Okay. When the heart pumps, okay, there's going to be less pressure here than there is here. And that's what causes the semilunar valve to open. Okay. It's all about pressure of the blood, not about if the muscle is pulling on this, because there is no muscle pulling on that in comparison to the bicuspid valve right here. Okay. The route of blood flow through the heart. Okay. Blood flows from the body through the right atrium to the right ventricle, then it goes to the lungs. Okay. This is how it goes through the heart into the body. So it comes from the body to the right ventricle, to the right atrium, then to the right ventricle, then to the lungs. From the lungs, it comes back into the left atrium. The left atrium to the left ventricle, pumped back to the body through the, what's not written up there? Aorta. Okay. The aorta is the directional artery that the blood pumps through there. Okay. All right, so here we see how the blood pumps through the heart. It comes in through the vena cava, enters into the right atrium. Right ventricle pumps the blood out to the lungs, and it comes back in from the lungs into the pulmonary trunk, which then enters into the left atrium, and then moves to the left ventricle, and from the left ventricle it gets pumped out through the aorta to the body. Okay, you can see the diagram down here. It goes in through the superior vena cava to the right atrium. It passes through the tricuspid valve, right ventricle, pulmonary semilunar valves, pulmonary trunk, pulmonary arteries. You know that pretty well. I'm not as concerned about the valves as much as I am knowing the locations. Okay. As long as you know it passes through a valve, if you mess up bicuspid or tricuspid, in that case, it's not going to be as big of an issue as if I were to ask a specific question, which valve is found in the right side of the heart, which would be found in the left. Here, I just want to know the main, steps here. Okay, the ones that have the numbers. All right, blood supply to the heart. Okay, the coronary arteries branch off of the aorta and supply blood to the heart. Okay. Blood returns from the heart tissues to the right atrium through the coronary sinus and the coronary vein, the cardiac veins. Okay. So here we can see that we have coronary arteries. Okay. Coronary arteries are found in the exterior portion of the heart, and what are they doing? They're supplying blood to the heart muscles, right? And without that blood supply, the heart muscles could not supply blood to the body because they wouldn't be able to contract without a blood supply themselves. Okay. The cells of the heart are loaded with mitochondria, and without the oxygen would not be able to function properly. fibrous skeleton of the heart consists of basically a fibrous connective tissue. There's no bones in the heart, but there is some extremely tough connective tissue. When you cut through it, you'll find out what I mean by it. It's a very tough area. Okay. They form fibrous rings around the AV, okay, atrioventricular, and the semilunar valve for support. It also provides a point of attachment for heart muscles. Okay. If the heart muscles don't have some type of substrate from which to attach, it would not be a very efficient system. Okay. It also helps to electrically insulate the atria from the ventricle. So when the atria are triggered to contract, only the atria contract. When the ventricles are to contract, only the ventricles contract because they're electrically insulated from each other. If they both contracted at the same time, you would have complete disorder in the body. You probably would not live for a very long period of time. Okay, cardiac muscle cells. Okay. Cardiac muscle cells are branched and have one centrally located nucleus. Remember, they're similar to skeletal muscle cells in that they're striated. But how they're different, okay, is that they have only one nucleus and that they're branch cells, not extremely long cells, okay, with multiple nuclei. Actin and myosin fibers, just like what we talked about, the skeletal muscle fibers, okay, are organized to form sarcomeres. Okay, that's the main difference here. The actin and myosin are present, but they're sarcomeres. Okay, and at these areas, they're going to come up and they're going to form what's called Z discs. You're going to see those here very soon. The tubules in sarcoplasm, okay, are not as organized as what's found in skeletal muscle. So the heart muscles are not as organized as cells, in particular, as cardiac muscles are. And contraction depends on calcium ions, just like other muscle contraction is needed. Okay, you need calcium, you need sodium, and potassium. Okay. The heart especially needs calcium. Okay. Also, it also relies exclusively on aerobic respiration for ATP reproduction, because the heart does not function on anaerobic pathways. It's just like the brain. It won't function very well without a supply of oxygen. Okay. They have many mitochondria and are supported extremely well with blood vessels in order to maintain a high amount of oxygen in the heart muscle. Okay. Now, we're talking about down here the intercalated disc. Okay. The intercalated disc allow action potentials to move from one cell to the next. So the cardiac muscles end up functioning more as a unit rather than cells on their own. So they function as a unit together through joints of intercalated discs. Okay. Histology of the heart continues. So here we see these muscle cells, and we can see these intercalated discs found in between the cells. You see that thin pink line there that's in between the muscle cells? If you want to come up closer, you can see it, but you'll be able to see it on your own PowerPoint. And I'll pull out a microscope with some heart muscles that we can look at later as well. Okay, so we can see in these muscles. All right. The T-tubules here in the muscle subunits and the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Okay, we got sarcomeres, and here's the muscle striations. Okay. In this, we'll find Z discs that we'll talk about some more. Okay. I hope this works. That's working. Okay, so here we see excitation or depolarization of the plasma membrane occurring. From home, these haven't been working. I'm glad they work on this. Okay. Then there's an opening of voltage-sensitive plasma membrane calcium channels in the T tubule. Calcium then flows into the cytoplasm or the cytosol inside the T tubules. And the calcium binds to the calcium receptors of the external surface of the sarcoplasmic reticulum. And the calcium channels are open.
We're talking about this. You're going too fast.
I am.
We kept our mouth shut while he was here. We missed what we were trying to figure it out.
Oh, I didn't realize I was.
Well, because the reason why you're making us so messed up is because you're putting such a big blanks, and you're putting one blank for 3 words.
Well, yeah, I've gotten used to you being able to hit pause
So I'm like, okay,
on the ones on YouTube. What did you miss?
we got it.
Okay.
Just trying to make it grammatically correct.
Just raise your hands. Crazy Stevenson. I missed something. That's all you got to say. All right. Systolic calcium concentration will then increase. I'm sure which this thing will work better than this. And then muscle contraction occurs. 6:34.
That's it. Okay.
There we go. All right, guys, let's take a little 5-minute break.
Praise God. This is too much information.
Hey, we're not used to doing this. We haven't done this in several weeks.
I know. I think it's just all these blanks. The blank didn't give us blanks, they're giving us too many.